Hey guys, welcome back to Crazy Movie Recaps. Today we will be recapping the 2019 psychological thriller film titled Fractured. Brace yourselves for an intense viewing experience, as this movie is packed with unexpected twists and turns that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The movie begins with a gloomy atmosphere as Ray drives his car with his wife Joanna and daughter Perry, while they engage in a heated argument about their personal family matters. Joanna expresses her belief that their relationship is beyond fixing, while Ray acknowledges the rough patch they're going through but confesses his love and concern for her. During their emotional exchange, Ray utters the words "I love you" to Joanna, but briefly loses control of the car. But Joanna helps him in regaining control. Perry informs Ray that her headphones have stopped working due to the batteries being depleted. Ray assures her that he will help her in obtaining new ones once they reach a station, and in the meantime, he sings a song to keep her amused. After a while, Perry expresses her need to use the restroom, so they stop at a gas station. While there, Joanne requests Ray to purchase a Coke and batteries for Perry's headphones. However, Ray realizes he doesn't have enough money to buy everything, so he skips the batteries and instead grabs 2 bottles of liquor and a cup of coffee for himself. Upon returning to the car, Joanne inquires about the batteries, but Ray fabricates a story claiming the store was out of stock. At this point, Perry realizes that her compact mirror is missing and suspects she might have left it in the women's restroom. Joanne decides to check the restroom while she instructs Ray to look for it in the back seat. Ray gets up to check it, and in the meantime, Perry starts to wander off and starts walking towards a construction site. As she approaches a balloon, she hears a commotion and is taken aback by the sight of a dog approaching her. She starts backing away slowly, but eventually finds herself dangerously close to a pit. In distress, she calls out to her father for help. Ray quickly realizes the situation and instructs Perry not to move. He then grabs a rock and hurls it towards the dog, with the intention of frightening it off. Unfortunately, Perry becomes startled and falls into the pit. Without hesitation, Ray jumps in after her in an attempt to save her. After a few seconds, Ray regains consciousness and slowly starts to get up. Despite hearing his wife's voice, he does not react. Joanne is crying beside an unconscious Perry. She is calling out to Ray and attempting to get his attention, but he is overwhelmed with shock and pushes her away. After closing his eyes for a few moments, Ray hears Joanne's voice once more and is grateful to observe that Perry is still breathing. He moves towards her and carefully lifts her, but Perry complains about pain in her arm. Thinking that she may have broken it, he lifts her up and places her inside the car. Although Joanne urges him to call 911, he insists on driving, as he had seen a hospital sign a few miles ago. While driving, Joanne repeatedly urges him to speed up, causing him to exceed the speed limit and narrowly avoiding colliding head-on with another vehicle. After arriving at the hospital, Ray suggests that they should wait in a waiting area due to the long queue. Nevertheless, Joanne informs him that Perry is experiencing severe pain, so Ray returns to the receptionist. Upon speaking with the receptionist, he is asked to register and he proceeds to add his name to the list before returning to his seat. After a while, Joanne says that her head is throbbing. Ray says that she is probably dehydrated and goes to get a Coke. On the way, he spots 3 bodies being brought into the hospital on stretchers. Afterward, he returns to the waiting area and eventually gets called into the room along with Joanne. The receptionist is gathering his medical history and inquiring about some personal matters. Among these questions is one that related to his deceased wife, Abby, who passed away in a car accident 8 years ago. The couple becomes annoyed by the personal questions. The receptionist then offers to register their daughter for organ donation, but the couple declines the offer. Lastly, she informs them that their medical insurance will not be accepted and they will have to pay for the checkup out of pocket. Ray says that he would pay for everything. Later, a nurse comes and takes Perry away to see the doctor, who diagnoses her with a fractured arm that requires a cast and recommends a CT scan to check for a brain hemorrhage. However, only one parent is permitted to accompany Perry into the CT scan room, so Ray remains outside and observes the elevator descend to the lowest floor. Ray wakes up after a few hours and inquires about his family from the receptionist. Unfortunately, the receptionist informs him that she doesn't have any information as there have been changes in shifts. Ray requests her to check the records, but she informs him she doesn't have information on that either. Ray becomes frustrated and slaps the desk. In response, the receptionist contacts the CT lab to verify if there was a CT scan in progress. However, the lab attendant confirms that no scan has taken place since 9 a.m. Despite the receptionist's efforts, Ray's family cannot be located, and she even blames him for visiting the wrong hospital. Ray is not convinced and enters into the restricted area of the hospital reserved for doctors and nurses in search of his family. However, he is stopped by officers, causing a disturbance. A doctor intervenes to defuse the situation. Ray encounters the nurse who treated his daughter Perry and requests her to inform the doctor. The nurse confirms that Ray had indeed visited the hospital, but for a head injury and not with his family. Ray becomes frustrated and accuses her of lying, which leads to the point where he almost attacks her and needs to be restrained. In order to calm him down, doctors administer sedatives and confine him to a room. Ray attempts to open the locked door, but the sedatives are taking effect and slowing him down. To counteract their effects, he injects himself with adrenaline from the cabinets, breaks the glass with a towel-wrapped fist, and flees the hospital. However, his escape is noticed by others, including a security guard who pursues him. Ray eventually manages to hide in a car. Upon seeing a police car parked outside, Ray approaches the officers and explains the whole situation to them. He says that the hospital is keeping their family against their will. After providing his identification, the police seek assistance from the receptionist and Ray requests to take them to the CT lab along with the doctor. However, upon arrival, it becomes evident that the CT machine hasn't been in use since 9 a.m., leading Ray once again to suspect the hospital staff of deceit. Ray insists on speaking with Dr. Bertham, who treated Perry, and the staff agreed to this request. However, as the receptionist presents the check-in list from the previous shift, Perry's name is nowhere to be found. Dr. Bertham arrives just in time to inform Ray that he had come to the hospital alone and had received treatment for a head injury. The doctor had advised him to undergo a CT scan, but Ray declined, citing his wife Abby, who was waiting for him outside. The police become suspicious of Ray when he refers to his wife as Joanne rather than Abby. According to Ray, the receptionist was already familiar with Abby when she was taking his medical history, and now the hospital staff is using Abby's name to make him look bad. The guard proposes checking the CCTV footage to determine the truth. They head to the CCTV room and examine the recordings, which reveal that Ray arrived alone and neither Joanne nor Perry were with him. Despite this evidence, Ray continues to accuse the hospital staff of falsifying the records. Ray insists that the police officers visit the gas station where the accident occurred to uncover the truth. Later, he discovers Perry's scarf next to the bed and uses it as evidence that she was present. After seeking medical treatment, the doctor recommends Ray to see a psychiatrist named Teresa Jacobs. In a private room, she inquires about personal details regarding Ray's late wife Abby and her death. Ray discloses that Abby died in a car accident and she was pregnant at the time. He admits that he was an alcoholic and caused the fatal crash due to his mistake, resulting in the death of both his wife and unborn child. After realizing that something must be amiss, Teresa suggests to the police officers that they should investigate the construction site, as there is a chance that Joanne and Perry could still be there. Upon arriving at the site, the police discover bloodstains on the concrete, indicating that someone had fallen and suffered a head injury. Despite the evidence, Ray remains unconvinced and alleges that the hospital staff had planted the blood before they arrived. After assessing the situation, Teresa gently suggests to him that Joanne and Perry may have died on the spot and that he may have unknowingly caused their deaths. As a result, he is arrested by the police on suspicion of murder. But before they could take him away, a dog appears, the same one that Ray saw earlier and which attacked his daughter. This sight convinces him that he is not hallucinating. Holding Teresa at gunpoint, he orders everyone to drop their weapons and forces them into a gas station, taking Teresa's card before locking them in. He then drives to the hospital and, using Teresa's card, gains entry through a back entrance, convinced that his family has been taken to the basement. In order to blend in, he puts on a doctor's coat and takes the lift to the lower level, but is spotted by a security guard who tries to get him out. After getting into a physical fight with the security guard, he proceeds to strangle him and takes the guard's keys. Upon reaching the lower level, he is taken aback to witness doctors transporting boxes labeled as human organs. After experiencing a moment of panic, he enters a room where he finds mutilated bodies, leading him to believe that the hospital has taken his family's organs. This explains why the nurse was convincing to make Perry an organ donor that morning. He follows a nurse to an operating room where he sees doctors are operating on Perry. Ray pulls out a gun and demands that the doctors step back. He also sees Joanne, who is barely conscious in a wheelchair, and she informs him that the hospital staff had drugged them. Ray puts them both in wheelchairs and attempts to leave, but the surgeons try to sedate him again. Despite their attempts, Ray manages to break free and shoots a light, causing an explosion. In spite of his struggle to stand up, he takes his wife and Perry out of the hospital. As he makes his way through the corridor, he shoots a doctor who tries to stop him. Ray puts both Joanne and Perry in the car and starts driving. While they were on the road, Perry complained about her arm still hurting, and Ray started singing the same song he had previously sung to her. As the camera zoomed in on the back, it revealed that the people in the car were not Joanne and Perry, but rather random people whom Ray had abducted from the hospital in the middle of the surgery. The flashback reveals the truth about the tragic event. Perry did not survive the fall and died instantly, while Joanne, pushed away by Ray, hit her head on the concrete and also passed away. However, Ray's grief and inability to accept the reality of the situation led him to create a false reality in which his wife and daughter were still alive. Throughout the story, Ray had been hallucinating about them, while their actual bodies remained in the trunk of his car. In the hallucination, Joanne tells Ray to return home, and the camera zooms out once again. As the movie ends, we see that Ray suddenly stops smiling, which hints that he might have figured out what was actually happening. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other videos that recap other mind-blowing movies.